The views and opinions of the guest does not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the host, the show, and the team. Hey guys, welcome to a new episode of our podcast. And we have a really cool guest today. I mean, one of the things that we learned from last year is that we should take care of our money, we should be protected, and we should invest because there will come a time where we might be stuck at home again and we need to be ready when that happens. Another thing is that we should be aware of maximizing all potentials when it comes to like going to college, just to make sure we get the best deal and not be in such deep debt. And this guest of mine, I'm very excited because he's knowledgeable in all those aspects. He is an insurance broker and financial service entrepreneur. He has his own insurance agency. Aside from that, he works for a company that helps college students in the United States in terms of getting a college loan, giving them the best deal. And he is very knowledgeable in cryptocurrency, and I know it because I've checked his LinkedIn account and all his posts. And yeah, I'm so excited because I'm not really I'm not knee deep into it, so I have a lot of questions because there are a lot of people out there who's giving different ideas about it, but we got the expert here. So again, guys, this is IDK What To Say, where we figure things out and learn from the best. So let's give it up for our guest on this episode. It's Spencer Freidenrich.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you, Spencer. Correct me if I'm wrong. I pronounced your last name right?
You did it right. Yeah,
Oh,
it usually
perfect.
gets scrambled.
Exactly. And I have to ask, like, do you have a European background with that surname or something?
Yeah, it's a German background. Yeah, I think it was pronounced Freidenreich in German back in the day.
Oh, that explains it. Because I was like googling how to pronounce your name, and you would notice like earlier I asked you if that's how it's pronounced, but it's different in the states, huh?
Yeah, the best way I'd say, the easiest way to say it, I say I was free, then I was rich. I mean, that's the hope, right? But that's the
Wow,
easiest way to remember it, I think, for people.
that's a good way to let them know how to pronounce your name. The funny thing about my name, and I'm sure you saw it on LinkedIn, my first name is Rosh. I always say it's Josh with an R. So that's because
Perfect.
like it's so hard to read it if you are not familiar with those names. The cool thing about you is you've been living beside the beach for like since you were young. How is it, man?
It's great. Yeah, I've lived all up and down California. I grew up in Laguna Beach, California. Typical beachside upbringing. That was awesome. And after that, once I turned 18, I went to college at the University of Arizona. Um, and so I lived out there for a bit, and then lived in Minnesota for a little bit under a year, and then moved back to Northern California and San Francisco, and now just moved out of San Francisco and living in just about 2 hours south, but bounce around all kind of Northern California. So kind of seen my fair share of California in my day, but yeah, growing up near the beach was awesome, and I was on surf team and did that whole thing. So it was really really nice upbringing.
Yeah, man, that is so cool. And the reason I said that is because, like, I'm in the Philippines. It's a tropical country. Every time there are tourists here, like, the first thing they want to do is to make sure they get a tan before the vacation ends, so to speak. And I guess you're getting that on a daily basis, and you don't have to even pay for like a beach hotel or something. Now, another cool thing about you, and I just read this, is that after graduating college, you did some courses where you traveled the world and to 20 countries. I mean, I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah. So when I was in college, I did a program called Semester at Sea, and it's a study abroad program that you hop on a cruise ship and you sail around the world with about 600 students and about 200 staff and teachers that are on board. So you're doing school while you're traveling abroad. And we started in San Diego, and we went across the Pacific. It took us, I think, 5 days to get to Hawaii, and then 10 days to get from Hawaii to Japan. And from there, we explored all different parts of Asia. Did not go to the Philippines, but I was bummed we didn't go there. But we went to Japan, China, Hong Kong, Vietnam, Burma, India, Singapore along the way as well. Then we went down to Mauritius, and then we went to South Africa, and then we went to Ghana, Morocco, and Spain. And that was the end of the voyage on the ship with all the students. And then after that, I traveled for about a month in Europe and did all the European towns and cities and countries. And then finally, after about a month, traveling, and it was about a 3.5 month voyage. It was, just about 4 months. I was ready to go home. So I flew home from San Francisco flew home to San Francisco from Germany. So it was quite the experience. 20 countries along the way, and it definitely has shaped my whole life experience, and some of my best friends in the world came out of that experience.
Man, that sounds like a cool way to study, and the reason is like everybody would always want to travel after graduating, but you're hitting two birds with one stone, and you're meeting a lot of different people and experiencing culture. Uh, Out of all those places you've been through, what's like the most memorable one, or what place did you see that made you inspired to do what you are doing right now? Like, which country would you say is more active business wise, or which country inspired you to go in through this route? Because correct me if I'm wrong again, I saw that you worked in the corporate world, but you realized it wasn't for you. Is it because of something you experienced during the cruise?
Yeah, I would say that the biggest thing that the cruise, or not necessarily a cruise, but yeah, the trip around the world, semester at sea, taught me was that there are so many possibilities in the world. You can make your own route, and whether that be in business, in life, with friendships. You don't obviously I'm born and bred in the United States. You don't have to live in the United States. There's a lot of great countries around the world, Philippines included, like that you can live in, and you can make your way, and you can have a fantastic life. So I think what it opened my eyes to was that you can be whoever you want to be. You can do whatever you want to do if you just set your mind to it. And then, kind of bridging that after post, those lessons learned in, post college time, where, you start to get a job and you're in the corporate, world, like you said. After some time in the corporate world, I think it was a good place for me to start. It gives you some structure. You kind of get on your feet. You're a broke college kid getting out of college. But I realized and took those lessons that, hey, I can do anything. I can be whoever I want to be if I just set my mind to it. And so that's just kind of the direction I'm headed now. And I'm more thrilled than ever. I wake up every day and I'm super excited, and it's not as much of so the place that stood out to me the most was Vietnam and Hai Long Bay. Just the kind of beauty of Vietnam and Hai Long Bay for those who haven't been. But as far as business wise goes, Hong Kong was probably the place that stood out to me on our trip, because Hong Kong it's hustling and bustling, man. You either make it in Hong Kong or you don't. So I don't know if any of your viewers or yourself have been to Hong Kong, but it is an awesome place. So those are two places that really stood out to me.
Yeah, I have some friends who live in Hong Kong and some friends who visited it. I always one thing that I could get every time I ask them how the city is that they're very business oriented. They want everything fast paced. Like even in the smallest stores, it's always making sure that they are very efficient in terms of like speed or providing their service. So yeah, I think Hong Kong is one of those places where, business is the forefront of their mind.
Yeah, I would bet similar to probably San Francisco and New York and the major, a lot of other major cities. Obviously, those are the ones that I'm familiar with. But yeah, yeah, it definitely is that epicenter of business for sure.
Yeah, and again, for all our listeners, you have your own insurance company. I mean, could you share us about what you offer in that company of yours?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a what's called a commercial insurance broker. There's different verticals within insurance that you can work on. Typically, when people think of insurance, they think of I need a home insurance policy for my home, or I have a vehicle and I need to cover myself driving my vehicle, and if anything happens. Um, what I do is I work with companies to do similar type things, but for companies. So I work with construction companies that might have 2 or 3 offices that they need to cover their buildings at each office. I also help them get, the rest of their suite of insurances that they need. They need liability insurance in case anybody sues them. They need workers' compensation insurance in case one of their workers is on a job site. Just using construction as an example, like either on a job site or in the office, and they slip and fall, or somebody hits them in the head with piping that they had on the job site or something. We also work on the commercial auto fleet. So I have a client that has 25 vehicles that they own, their business owns. So we basically insure all of those vehicles under one policy, under like one master policy. And then we also, help them with their installation insurance. Again, just using construction as an example. If they are doing they're building a building for a client, and something happens while there's an installation is going on, then we'll cover them for their insurance there. So that's kind of all like wrapped into commercial insurance. It's when I say commercial, it's just company insurance for businesses. So that's what I specialize in, but also have helped people with their home insurance if need be. We also with the business insurance, there's a lot of things that play into making sure that your corporate documents are taken care of. There's partnership agreements that all kind of plays into itself, making sure that really if anything happens, an incident happens, somebody sues you, there's a car accident, owner dies, an owner becomes disabled, one of your workers becomes disabled, something like that, that you're covered and that business is not paying out of pocket for it.
Yeah, I hear you. And again, the title of this podcast is IDK What To Say, and that's because we try to help people navigate their way through things. And you are very good at insurances. And one thing that made me think was like during last year, a lot of businesses in our place, I would assume on your end too, a lot of like small business closed down. As an insurance expert, like what do you think are some of the things that you could have told or you would want to tell business owners that they should have done earlier when they're starting the business, just to prevent from stuff like that happening? Because like we didn't see the pandemic happening, but I kind of feel if they were insured, or if they had an idea of an insurance they could get at that moment, they could have like make it last longer.
Yeah, totally. So, the sad truth is, and the reason we kind of got into this issue, and why you're seeing so many governments like print so much money as basically insurance to give to small business owners, and in the United States they're just printing money left and right. I think they're about to pass another $1.9 trillion stimulus package, and they've already passed 3+ million or $1 trillion of stimulus package. And the reason they're doing that is because unfortunately, actually, for company insurance or business insurance, unless you buy a specific pandemic insurance, it's typically not covered in your typical insurances that you find. Now, this was like a black swan event. 99.999% of the businesses out there have never bought pandemic insurance because, quite frankly, even if I think the thinking was, even if we had a pandemic, that hopefully the government's not going to shut us down, that we're just going to take precautions to operate our business safely. And I think what I would tell business owners is that unfortunately, that type of pandemic insurance is super hard to get, and it's really, really expensive. So I wouldn't necessarily be banking on that we're going to have another 100-year pandemic type event, but I would say that being conservative in your business models, making sure you have enough cash built up. Obviously, there are things that you can't control, like the government shutting restaurants down. That's really unfortunate for them. But at the same time, I mean, I would just tell them to be as conservative as possible and to make sure you have the proper insurances in place, because one thing that people that aren't really thinking about is how now all the laws are changing, and when the laws are changing in insurance, you have to change your internal policies to align with the law. If you're not aligned with the law and you're not in compliance, then you can be sued. And if you're sued, you need to make sure you have the proper insurance. So one of the things we faced with our clients was obviously trying to get them some premium breaks on their insurance costs, but we were also facing the kind of difficult task of the ever-changing law environment. And I'm in the United States, and then specifically I'm in California. And California is the most litigious. It's litigious being like people sue you. They can sue you for anything, basically. In Texas, you don't have that. You don't have that problem, right? It's a lot more business protected. Like businesses are a lot more protected. The laws out in California are really, really swayed towards employees and people rather than protecting business. They think the attitude is businesses, they're the big bad enemies out here in California, which is a little unfortunate. So it's more important than ever, and I had a lot of discussions to make sure you have the proper insurances, because there could be lawsuits coming down next year to really be buttoned up with all your insurances. And just be protected in case things start to change.
Yeah, and I have to ask, like, on your end as an insurance expert, like, how early do do businesses get or consider having a business insurance? I mean, based on your experience, do they immediately get one as they open a new business, or do they try navigate things first, see if their business works, then get it, or do they have a specific timetable before they do it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say it depends on the business. So if you're like a software company, the most important insurance you probably want to have is probably cyber insurance, because most of your business is being done over the internet, and you have customer information that could potentially be accessed. If you're a construction company, you need to have insurance on day one, because you cannot go onto a job site. You can't do your work without insurance. So same thing with a restaurant, right? If you are opening a restaurant, you're going to need insurance on day one, because there's going to be most likely a landlord who owns that building, and he's going to say, I want you to have insurance for the building that you're going to pay for as a tenant, because if you're cooking in your kitchen and there's a fire from the kitchen and it goes up in flames, you need to pay for the replacement of my building. Also, if you have customers that come in and they slip and fall and they hit their head because the floor was wet, then you need liability insurance to make sure you have insurance to cover that. So in case you get sued, let's say that, a person comes and slips, hits their head, and then is in a coma, and then accumulates $100,000 of medical bills. Well, you, the restaurant, because you had a wet floor, you're liable for that. You have to pay that $100,000 of medical expenses. So I would say it depends. It just depends on the type of business, but mainly a lot of businesses are going to want to get insurance day one, and then they'll grow their suite of insurances as their business continues to expand. So, a handyman, again, I'm just using construction because it's a fairly easy thing to understand. A handyman probably only just needs some liability insurance that basically says if I mess something up or I hurt somebody, I'm tacking something into the wall and it falls down and hits somebody in the head, then like I will pay for their medical bills or pay to make sure that they're okay. Whereas a full-on 50-person plumbing company, they need a lot more insurances. They have vehicles, they have their liability insurance that they need, they have an office that they need to have insurance for. They do installation projects. They're building they're on a building project that's, I have one of my clients, they did all the plumbing work for the LinkedIn building in downtown San Francisco. They needed to have tons and tons of insurance, multi-millions of dollars worth of insurance, and all their installation insurance. And then they have, 30 plumbers on the job. They need to make sure they have their workers' compensation insurance. So the point is, it depends on your situation, but yeah, mostly when you're getting started, really taking a look at what's the risk of operating my business, and depending on the type of business you are, that's going to depend on the type of insurance that you're going to need.
Yeah, it really sounds that, some would need one sooner and some can wait, but at the end of the day, you need to be secured in your business. So, insurance is something that like all businesses should consider, regardless of the situation. Another hot topic, though, Spencer, is for students, and that is I've watched a lot of features about it. The college loans, and um, I don't know the exact situation it is there, but based on how I understand what I've read or what I've watched, it's like they are getting bad deals. And what I'm not sure is if they are like given bad deals by the companies, or they're just not properly picking the correct one.
Basically, college is a huge thing in the United States. It's I don't want to say unfortunate, but the way that the system is set up, and in a lot of countries as well, is that you kind of need to check the box of college to get access to being able to apply to the best jobs in the market. That's just the reality of the situation. So my friend had a company. I actually invested in the company, and what they do is they help families and students and their students in high school kind of get together in an admissions plan and a funding plan to make sure that they can go to college, but make sure that they don't they don't graduate with tons of student debt. I mean, there's $1.7 trillion of student debt in the United States alone. Clearly, we're not doing something right. I don't think anyone should be, saddled with that much student debt. The other thing that really, why I got involved in the business and why I'm trying to help people in that area is that the numbers don't equate. When you take on $200,000 of student debt to go to college, but then you graduate and get into a major that, you study a major and then you graduate and get a job that pays you $50,000 a year. That doesn't add up. You can't make $50,000 a year and pay off your student debt ever. So it's a really important area that's really kind of important to me. I was lucky enough to go to college and graduate debt free, which has allowed me to start my own business and take more risks and invest in this college consulting business to give back and help people do the same thing, and then also invest in cryptocurrency and other investments. So it's a really, really big thing.
Yeah, definitely. And the reason I was asking that, me being Filipino, I have a lot of Filipino friends who are taking health related courses, and sometimes I see them taking 2, 3 shifts a day not because they can't pay their bills, but because they have to pay their student loans, and it takes a long while. It's not something you could immediately pay. So like for those listening right now who are going to college, like what advice can you give them so that they could not be trapped in this kind of situation?
Absolutely. That's a phenomenal question. And, I'm so glad you brought that up. So here's what we do. I'll kind of explain what we do, and then it'll kind of go into the advice. So my company that I'm invested in, that I work with and I'm an advisor on, it's called FMC College Funding Solutions. What we do is we do three things. So first, we help students and their families create an admissions plan. We don't just look at, hey, what are the good schools and what schools would I like to go to? We actually look at, okay, what's a good school for you, but also how much money do they usually give in free grant money, like free tuition money. What's your chances of getting in there? Do they have the major that you're looking at? So I think people tend to just look at, hey, here in the United States, like in California, hey, I want to go to school at the University of Santa Barbara. I want to go to school, for me, I'm guilty of this, but I just said, hey, I want to go to school at the University of Arizona. And I just went. I didn't look anything past, the surface. Like, so you really have to dig a little bit deeper and say, okay, what is the typical, do I have a good chance of getting a lot of financial aid if I go to this school? The second thing that we do is we help create a funding plan, which is goes over, basically our team helps people fill out all the financial aid paperwork that they need to fill out. It's kind of like doing your taxes. It's a lot that goes into it. So we say, you hire someone, we kind of give the equation. You hire someone, an accountant, to do your taxes. Why wouldn't you hire someone, us, a college consultant, to help you do all this financial aid paperwork? Because it's complex. So we find that 1 in 3 people or families, they fill out that paperwork incorrectly, which actually it hinders their ability to get the most amount of free financial college aid that they can. And so the two pieces of advice in those two sections would be, one, put together a good admissions plan and look at the history of the college's giving. Look at, hey, how much do they have in their endowment fund? Do they actually give a lot of scholarships and grants and give a lot of money for students to go here? The second plan is make sure you fill out the paperwork correctly. You have to fill out the paperwork spot on. Make sure that it's good, because 1 in 3 people, 33% of people making mistakes. You're not, that can't happen to you if you want to maximize your financial aid. So that's kind of what we do in a nutshell. But the last piece of advice that I would give is that colleges, my business partner says this is the best saying we have, is that make no mistake, colleges are in the business of education, but they are also in the business of making money. And the way they make money is through donations, and they don't want to give that money away. So, or they want to give as least amount of money away to you to make sure that you attend their school, right? So I call it fishing. So let's say that, Paulo, you want to apply to my school, and, you just apply, and I say, oh, great, Paulo's such a great candidate. He'd be perfect for us. We can give him a full ride. We could give him, we could basically pay for all of his school, based on his criteria and his grades and all that stuff. We can give him a full ride, but we want to keep our money. So let's offer him, let's say the school costs $50,000 a year to attend. Let's offer him $25,000 and see if he accepts. Let's see if he accepts. And what happens in this case is that most families and most students, they're so scared that they're going to lose that first $25,000 offer that they don't do anything else. They just say, great, this is awesome. I'm going to go get a loan for the other $25,000 and I'm going to come to your school because I really want to come to your school. The reality of the situation is you could have gotten $50,000, but you only got $25,000 because you didn't negotiate with the colleges. I mean, at the end of the day, the colleges want you to come to their college. So you need to negotiate with those colleges for the best financial aid package you can. And the best way to do that is to have multiple offers from different schools and use them, leverage them against each other. If you want to go to MIT and you're also applying to Stanford, leverage them against each other and say, hey, MIT, you said you give me $20,000 of free, scholarships, but Stanford said they're going to give me $40,000. Can you meet their offer? So that would be the biggest advice that I would say there. Admissions plan, make sure you fill out the paperwork right, and negotiate with the schools to get the best offer, because you never know. I mean, we've helped families in that exact scenario, Paulo, where literally we have doubled their offer on negotiating on their behalf, because we said, hey, we know that you can give a better offer than this based on the criteria of the student and the family and all that stuff. So hopefully that's helpful for you guys.
Yeah, man, that's so insightful. And I just want to add to that because based on what I see from my sister's friends is that, yeah, it is true. They are being offered different like scholarships and stuff, but they don't use it as leverage because they are afraid that, number one, if they say, hey, this school offered me this, school A might put down the offer off the table. And number
Exactly.
two, yeah, if you're gonna, I mean, they don't see it as like a way to negotiate. They never even think about negotiating. They just try to look for who offers the bigger money. But at the end of the day, if you compute everything, even if school A offers a bigger scholarship, it would be more expensive to study there than school B. And you saying that they could use it as a way like how sports athletes would use other team, like if a Kobe Bryant would be in free agency, he'll say, hey, this team offered me this one. It's really smart, man. I never saw it that way. And the reason is, we always, as students, we always fear that, that $25,000 might be taken away from us, and we might be forced to pay the full price. So man, that's really insightful of you.
Paula, that's actually the best analogy I've ever heard, and I actually haven't thought about it that way, but that is absolutely spot on. You are a free agent. Those teams, those colleges, want you to play for their team. They want you to come. So yeah, you leverage use leverage, use their offers against them, and say, hey, college A will give me this much. Maybe really you want to go to college B, but use those other offers. They're going to see it's just human psychology, that people are, there's admissions officers. They're humans, it's not robots. They're looking at that thing out. We really want this, student to come to our school. So great analogy.
Yeah, thanks, man. And yeah, at the end of the day, I just realized, they'd rather have like taken a student for a smaller amount than have that student bring their money on a different college. So man, that is eye opening. Like I never seen it that way. Even here in the Philippines, I never thought that it would be possible. But I think had had I known that before I go to college, I would have used it because there were some offers in the table, but I never thought of using it that way. So man, thanks a lot. That's really cool of you.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope someone someone uses that in the future. And if you have any questions, I don't know if you guys will have show notes or whatever. I'm happy to provide some information, and we're happy to talk to anybody who needs help with that.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to ask for like your details, and we're going to put it here when we post it on all the platforms that we plan to post it on. And yeah, with those listening, Spencer gave some good insights. But at the end of the day, if you are a free agent, you would want to have the best manager giving you the best deals. And I mean, it's better to seek professional help from Spencer's team because he invested and clearly he is knowledgeable. So yeah, get yourself a good agent. Spencer seems like that agent who could give you that max deal from all the sports teams.
Thanks. Yeah, appreciate it. That's again, I'm excited to share that analogy with my business partner. because I think he's going to love that. But yeah, happy to help.
Yeah, man. Now, another cool topic that I really wanted to talk to you is about cryptocurrency. You said you've been in the game earlier, and I do believe in the Philippines, 2017, crypto started making some waves on our part, but the people here investing aren't as fully aware of what it could be, because I I'll tell you what happened on this part. Like, they were giving offers like, hey, crypto is worth this much, then a lot of people invested, then apparently it crashed down, so they like either sold their shares, or the crypto that they bought. Then like I remember I was in Illinois last Christmas, and Bitcoin went up $40,000, and I didn't see it coming, because I mean, during that time I thought it would just be like a fad, but man, it's here to stay, huh?
Yeah, yeah, I would say, cryptocurrency is definitely here to stay. And I love this subject because it's really a game changer. I think it's doing to money what the internet did to information. It's disrupting the money network, whereas the internet disrupted the information network. Now information on the internet moves around at the speed of light, and cryptocurrency is just at the tip of the iceberg, disrupting that money network. And I'm really, really excited to see it develop and play out. Obviously, moving money around the world, super quickly is just one application that is going to come out of it. Just like, moving information around the world is one application that comes out of the internet. Look what has been built in the internet in 20 years. You and I are now, FaceTiming, around the world. You're in the Philippines, I'm in the United States. It's
True.
pretty amazing. So, and that just happened in a short 20 years with the internet. It's going to be really, really interesting to see how it plays out with cryptocurrency, and what's going to happen in 20 years, and the growth that's going to play out there. So I've been investing in Bitcoin and a couple other cryptocurrencies since 2017. My fiance actually works for Coinbase, so we're deep in the crypto space. And let's fire away. What questions do you have regarding the space?
Yeah, man. First question: if you are listening to this podcast right now, you don't know anything about Bitcoin, what would you suggest them in terms of investing at 2021? Because I'm sure it's a different game 2017. What is the market right now? Like, how is the best strategy when it comes to investing on Bitcoin?
Sure. Yeah. So if you're listening now and you don't know anything about Bitcoin, the first thing that I would do is I would go onto YouTube. You can learn so many great things on YouTube. Where the crypto universe really lives is YouTube and Twitter. So if you also don't have a Twitter, I would also sign up for Twitter and start following the hashtag Bitcoin or Ethereum, but let's just stick to Bitcoin for simplistic sake. YouTube, I would also on YouTube, I would just type in what is Bitcoin, and there's going to be a ton of videos, a ton of influencers on there, talking about what is Bitcoin. My favorite influencer, one that I follow very closely, his name is Anthony Pompliano. He in the industry, he goes as Pomp. You can find him on Twitter under Pomp. I'm pretty sure it's his, or A Pompliano. But you'll find him very easily. It's just POMP. And he does a great job at explaining what is Bitcoin and why is it important. It's the kind of go-to thing that I send everyone to, number one. Number two, if you're once you kind of have a baseline understanding of Bitcoin, you want to take a look at the investment landscape. Like you said, what would be your strategy in 2021? So the difference, what's happening now is different than the last 12 years, obviously, of Bitcoin. What's happening now is that the landscape is changing, where companies in the United States, publicly traded companies are starting to buy Bitcoin. They are starting to hold Bitcoin on their balance sheets, and basically their savings account. They're starting to hold some Bitcoin because of, basically what they're doing. The reason they're doing that is because the U.S. dollar is being printed. So there's so much new U.S. dollars being printed that it's devaluing the currency, which is basically meaning that things are becoming more expensive, Bitcoin included, real estate included. And so when you have a government, and I don't know exactly what the Philippines are doing as far as their currencies and if they're expanding their currency or as far as their supply, but it's simple economics. When you have the supply of something is going up, and the demand of something is staying the same, it's going to take the value of that asset or whatever that is going to go down. If you have I'm trying to like a restaurant. If you have one restaurant in a town, and that you're the only restaurant in town, you're probably going to get all the business, and your restaurant, the amount you could sell it for is probably much higher, or is super high. And then if now all of a sudden overnight 25 restaurants pop up in that same town, and you're not getting all the business, and your revenue starts going down, the amount you can sell your restaurant for immediately goes down. So that might not be the best analogy, but basically supply and demand is that there's more supply going into the United States dollar. They're printing tons and tons of money. The demand for it's remaining the same, so therefore the actual purchasing power of the dollar is going to go down. Now Bitcoin, the reason it's so valuable is because it's a scarce asset. The demand for Bitcoin is going up, but the supply is remaining the same. I could argue that the supply is actually going down. So again, economics 101, when the supply of something goes up and the demand of something, when the supply of something goes down and the demand of something goes up, the price is going to go up. That is what we're seeing now as far as the landscape. And to kind of answer your question fully, my horizon is that, my kind of investment horizon is that, you have to look at this thing from 5 to 10 years from now. You can't just look at, hey, am I going to make a quick buck? Because even back in 2017, like you said, people were investing in Bitcoin and the price all of a sudden plummeted. It went from 20,000 to 3,000. Even if you invested at the very high, the tip of it, at 20,000, and it plummeted all the way, which I will say, I rode it through 20 and I went all the way back down to like 3,500 or whatever it went down to, because my outlook was, where's this thing going to be in 5 years, 10 years? I wasn't super worried about the price day to day. Even if you bought at the $20,000 high in 2017, you still would have more than doubled your money in 3 years. I mean, I don't know about you, but in the United States, people chase a 7% return, which is the S&P, which is the stock market average return. They chase that every year, and that means you're doubling your money every 7 years. So to double your money in 3 years, I mean, I'm pretty happy with that, right? You're going 2 times the speed of growth that the stock market would. So what I would say to people is that I think that, it's a clear, just economic supply and demand exercise. The supply of Bitcoin is going down, or it's, there'll only ever be 21 million Bitcoin ever created. So the supply, we know how much supply there's going to be, and the demand is rapidly increasing from people, from companies. So if you have a 5 to 10 year time horizon, there's just no way in my mind that we're going to be priced lower than we are today. There's going to be bumps along the way. I mean, we're going to have a roller coaster, but it's going to be a roller coaster up the charts. We're going to just continue to go up. So, don't worry so much about the day to day. Look at the application of Bitcoin, and look at the future 5 to 10 years from now.
Yeah, man, that's one thing that I personally was worried about, because I started, like, when I saw it going on 40, I said, "Hey, man, I should do this because it seems like a good thing." And one thing that I didn't know back at 2017 is that you could buy Bitcoin not at its full price, because, like, even at that time, I mean, even if it went down to 3500, I wouldn't have that enough. I wouldn't be confident enough to invest that much money. And man, one thing that made me nervous, like, from month to month, is that, sometimes when you buy something, the price dips so low and then it went so high. And one example is that there was a time that Bitcoin was so high, then Elon Musk did that tweet. And when I woke up, it was so low. So I was like thinking, should I have sold it when it was high, or should I just keep it? But right now, I'm just stacking it up as much as I can. And yeah, man, that mindset was something that I am trying to do, and looking at it in the long term, rather than making a quick buck out of it.
Absolutely. I mean, so yeah, for your listeners out there, another thing that's important is that we know when Bitcoin was created, we know that there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. So it's a rare thing, it's a rare asset. But one Bitcoin can be divided into 100 million pieces. And those pieces are in the industry called Satoshis. So Satoshi Nakamoto was the anonymous founder of Bitcoin. No one knows who the founder of Bitcoin is. They just published a paper under the name Satoshi Nakamoto. That's not a real person. So a lot of people think it might be a group or one person, but that doesn't matter. But basically, 21 million Bitcoin ever going to be created in the world. 100, it can be divided into 100 million pieces. So, yeah, that's actually, Paulo, it's something that you think would be less common, but I actually get that question a lot. Do you have to buy one whole Bitcoin? I'm like, no, you can put $5 in. I mean, you can put $1 in. You can buy a fraction, and the reason you want to do that is because it's the best way to equate it is that it's digital gold. And I honestly think we're going through the digital gold rush right now. Personally, I think and there's a lot of opportunity to be had. The first opportunity is that investing in the actual gold itself. Let's go back to the gold rush in the United States, and it was people were looking to actually find the gold, right? That would be equating the Bitcoin, the digital gold. But the people who actually made the most money in the gold rush were the people who sold the shovels, who sold the picks, who sold the water filters to the actual miners. That's actually how Wells Fargo got started. Randomly enough, Wells Fargo was a shovel company. They sold shovels, and then they eventually became one of the biggest banks in the world. So
Sure.
I think we're seeing that digital gold rush, and right now we're in the let's go find and get and buy the asset, the actual digital gold. But it's going to be really interesting, like I said in the beginning, to see what comes out of it, because there's going to be a lot of this huge ecosystem of companies that support the infrastructure around Bitcoin, around cryptocurrency. So it's going to be really, really interesting. But yeah, for your listeners, my advice would be you don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin. You can just buy a fraction and just continue to buy a fraction and make it a part of your portfolio, depending on your risk profile or depending on where you are in the world. It really just it'll change. The use case will change a little bit depending on it's probably a little bit different for me in the United States as it is for you in the Philippines. So yeah, it's a great asset.
Yeah, man, and I wish that was something I knew beforehand, because, like, my brother, like, was given Bitcoin sometime June, and I believe it was worth $10 at that time. So when that 40,000 during December happened, I got so surprised that when I looked at his Bitcoin, it tripled. If I wasn't mistaken, it would have been $40 already, and I thought, had I put like $10 every month on that account that they have given, it would have been bigger. And Man, that is something. And there goes my next question. You always mention that there will be only a finite number of Bitcoin that will be released. Once we reach that max, like how much do you see one Bitcoin be worth? Like once everything gets taken, how much would it be worth, and what would be the next best step to do in cryptocurrency? Because like aside from Bitcoin, I'm just putting a little money as well on Ethereum, but like if I had $10, I would put like $6 on Bitcoin and the four on Ethereum, or like eight on Bitcoin and two on Ethereum. Like what is your fearless forecast? Because there is also like Bitcoin Cash, there's also XRP and all those
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And I really want to know, like, what do you think is the next Bitcoin, so to speak, in terms of cryptocurrency?
Yeah, so that's a great question as well. So for those listeners out there like who don't know, the way that the Bitcoin network and the everything works is that right now we have 18 million Bitcoin in existence. Every day, 900 new Bitcoin are being created. Um, Last year, before May, I think it was like May 10th, there was 1,800 new Bitcoin being created. What happens is there is a piece of the Bitcoin code that basically says that every roughly 4 years, that's about the time horizon, about roughly every 4 years, the new supply that's coming into the market gets cut in half. So that's another thing that helps it make it more valuable in the long term. Because again, we're go back to that supply and demand issue where the new the new supply is getting even less and the demand is increasing even more with people and businesses that want to buy it. I like to equate it to, it would be like every 4 years cutting the gold miners, the people who mine gold all around the world, just shutting them down, just shutting half of them down, and then another 4 years later, shutting another half of those miners down, and eventually, the gold would just not be mined anymore, right? So same thing with Bitcoin. At sometime in like 2020, 2100 or like 2150 or something like that. So like 100 plus years away, that will be when the last Bitcoin is mined. So what I would say with that is that because we're going through that supply and demand exercise, I honestly believe that, first of all, the first hurdle is Bitcoin will be worth as much as gold. And for one Bitcoin to be worth the same amount, the way you measure this is by the entire market capitalization and how much money is in each asset. Right now, it's a 5 trillion, I believe it's a $10 trillion market capitalization for gold. So Bitcoin is at a $1 trillion market capitalization. So that means that the Bitcoin price to be equivalent to gold needs to go 10x from here. So we're at like $50,000 roughly. So right around $500,000 is when Bitcoin is going to be as valuable as gold in terms of the macro environmental, or macro investment world. Basically, macro guys are going to look at it and say, this Bitcoin is worth as much as gold. Then from there, I think we're going to continue onward because Bitcoin has all the properties that gold have, but it's better in virtually every way. So long-term prediction, I honestly believe that, we could eventually, 10 to 20 years down the line, we could see a $10 million Bitcoin. I
Wow.
truly believe that. At that point, there's a lot of things that need to happen to get there. But at that point, I think Bitcoin would probably be the world's reserve asset. It would be, things that they would be kept on all the central banks, Central Bank of the Philippines, the Central Bank of the United States. It'd be kept on their balance sheets. They would own it just like they own gold now. Right now the United States dollar is the world reserve currency. But as long as they continue to devalue the currency by printing more money, we're headed off a cliff with the United States dollar. So I think the long-term prediction, that is possible. Now, I want to bring it back down to where are we at right now and what's possible maybe in 2021. I've been saying for a long time, and everyone I follow, the math kind of adds up. I think this year alone, we could be looking at somewhere in the range of 150,000 to 200,000 US dollar Bitcoin. Now, I think that's the peak. I think we're gonna peak up like that, and then there will be a pullback. I mean, everything, all assets around the world forever, if something goes up, it has to come down. But what I think is gonna happen is that because we have so much demand, it's gonna go up, it's gonna peak somewhere, around, let's just call it 200,000, somewhere around 200,000. And then we might see a pullback. I mean, we could see a 60% pullback from there, but what's a 60% pullback from there? That's like 80,000. So okay, well, where are we now? We're at 50,000. If we get that peak up to 200,000 and we get a pullback to 80,000 and it kind of normalizes out, and then in a few years, goes on a bull run again, and then we're up above 200, 300, 400, 500,000. I think that's very possible, honestly, and I think it's happening quicker than people can actually really comprehend. So that is my kind of prediction. It's kind of it's a rough estimate prediction. No one knows exactly what's going to happen, but I think that because you really, the only way to shut Bitcoin down at this point is to shut down the internet. If you have access to the internet, you have access to Bitcoin. It's as simple as that. If your country, for some reason, by using just the regular internet, they ban you from accessing, exchanges or doing transactions, you can get a VPN. Just get a VPN and you can access, Bitcoin. So there's no way to shut it down. So that's kind of the long answer to my prediction. The second part you asked is kind of what maybe is the next Bitcoin. First of all, I love your portfolio split, the 60-40 or the 80-20, somewhere in there. My personal portfolio split is 70% Bitcoin, 25% Ethereum, and I have 5% in just different kind of altcoins, as they call them. Those are kind of more speculative plays. I kind of look at that as like, maybe it's kind of betting at that point with that 5%. Hey, I know Bitcoin's going to succeed. I know Ethereum's going to succeed. But the other ones are just like, hey, maybe I'll put a little bit of money down. For you, it's maybe you put $6 down on whatever, $7 down on Bitcoin, $2 down on Ethereum, and $1 down on something else speculative. But I think if people have been asking me what do I think is the next Bitcoin, I just think that Ethereum is the next big thing, and I think people are underestimating it. I've told a lot of people at this point in the cycle, if you're purely looking for short-term gains, like, hey, I want to put $1 in and I want to try to triple that, quadruple, 10x that, I want that dollar to become $10. Ethereum might be your best bet, is because just as far as, it just broke an all-time high, and Bitcoin is sitting, almost 2.5 times above its all-time high. Ethereum is basically sitting right at its all-time high. So, and Ethereum tends to follow Bitcoin. So I think as far as investment goes, that is a good shot. But Ethereum is kind of it's a big project, but I'm really bullish on it because it's kind of, I equate it to the App Store. It's just like Apple has the App Store or Google have their app stores. They get a percentage of everything that's built or put into the App Store, right? If I buy an app and it costs $5, Apple's getting $1.50 from that app. So Ethereum kind of operates in that way, where it's kind of the App Store where applications can be built on top of Ethereum, and they get fees every time there's a transaction, every time anyone does anything on top of Ethereum. So I'm really bullish on Ethereum because I just think that, anytime you have a kind of a blank slate canvas that you allow people to build things on top of, and you make money from that. I mean, look at Apple. It became the most valuable company in the world, and I think the App Store had a lot to do with that, along with their other products. So that's kind of my, my next Bitcoin, but it's not that, it's fairly obvious. It's not that exciting in some crazy altcoin, but I don't think there really is going to be a next Bitcoin. I just think there's going to be more use cases within the cryptocurrency atmosphere. Bitcoin is kind of the use case of digital gold. It's that store of value that's really secure, that is great for storing your value. Ethereum is a different application, more like the App Store, where it's decentralized and you can build any application you want on top of it, and you can use their blockchain to have it as their ledger, and you can basically do everything on top of the Ethereum blockchain, and all you have to do is pay some fees, and Ethereum lets you do that. So I think there's going to be a lot of different applications that come from it.
Yeah, man, and I agree with you with that, like 5% investing on the other altcoins, because like every time I look at it, I always think I was wondering if I should invest on it or not. But if you think about it, I mean, it's less than $1. And number two, like you wouldn't know. Like I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, there was this story I read that someone bought pizza for 2 Bitcoin. And I was thinking, man, if that guy kept on his Bitcoin, like how that would probably be the most expensive pizza in the world.
Oh my
Um,
God, I think it's like a $10 million pizza now or something, but it's I think he bought it for tons of Bitcoin. They actually, it's funny, in the cryptocurrency industry, they call it Pizza Day. It's an actual day because it was the first day that anything was bought with Bitcoin. They bought it the guy bought pizza with Bitcoin.
Yeah, and with just going back quickly on what you said earlier, you did mention that it could possibly hit 200,000. As someone like me who is a big noob when it comes to Bitcoin, would you suggest that if it hits 200, that I sell some of it and just buy when it goes when it has a dip, or would you just suggest that I just keep the money in there and just wait till it goes higher?
So it's a good question. So $80
There we go.
million pizza. I love that. So
That's a good
there's
thing.
I think it depends on your time horizon with what you want to invest. So I think most people that are going to be listening to this, they just want something good enough term, right? Like in the next, again, going back to 5 to maybe 10 years, right? So if it's me, if that's your time horizon, which I think 99% or at least 90% of people are looking for, I would just do what's called dollar cost averaging. Like you said, $10 a month or whatever. The best way to do that with Bitcoin is something called Swan Bitcoin, swanbitcoin.com. It's the platform that allows you to have the cheapest fees, and basically it's super easy to use. And you can just say, I want to deposit $10 a month, $10 a week, $10 a day, whatever you want. And it will just automatically do it for you out of the bank account that you choose. And it will buy Bitcoin. So it's just proven over time that if you do dollar cost averaging, where you just consistently buy, that it's going to yield better returns for you in the long run. Now, if you're a trader and you're trying to trade up on that, on that cryptocurrency, then you may want to take some profits out. I mean, there's a method that you can use that's called the little old lady method. It's a very simple method. Is as soon as let's say you put $10 in, and as soon as that $10 doubles, you take the original $10 out and let the other $10 sit there. So you kind of, then you can put that $10. It's you're kind of like $10 in, it doubles, take the $10 out, put the $10 back in, let that double, take that $10 out. You're always constantly building up your portfolio that way with kind of the same principle. So again, I don't want to give advice. The general advice is the best way to do it is dollar cost average, because that will yield the best returns over the long term. But if you're trying to be a little more risky and you're trying to ride the wave up and you want to sell at the top, also the risk is maybe it goes to 200,000. We think it's the top, and then it just keeps going. So
Exactly.
it's hard to say. Like I can't. I think it all comes down to your strategy and what you're trying to achieve. For me, if it gets to that point, I'm definitely going to take some money off the table, but I'm not going to take my entire, portfolio. I'm not going to sell everything. I'll probably take my, some principal and maybe a little bit of profit off the table, and then just see what happens. So
Yeah, man. Like I totally
plan to
agree
own
with
Bitcoin
that.
for probably the rest of my life. So
Yeah, man. And yeah, going back to what I was saying, I think one of the biggest things that I've seen in the past, like 2017, when it was a boom here in the Philippines, like some people actually invested their whole life savings. Then when they saw the crash, they fear it. And I believe I was reading this article by Mark Cuban where he says if you're going to invest in Bitcoin, invest it in a way that it wouldn't break you in terms of paying your bills. Just keep it like putting coffee money every month, so that if it goes high, good for you. If not, then you just lose coffee.
yeah, I could not agree with that more. Do not put your life savings in. It's still in a speculative. We're still in the phase where the market is still trying to figure out what the price of Bitcoin is going to be long term, right? Now, a lot of people think it's going to go up, right? And I myself included. But yeah, only invest what you can comfortably lose, because there's a lot of things that oh, back to
Oh, there you go again.
oh man, no regrets with 10,000 Bitcoin. Oh man,
Definitely, definitely.
I love it. I love it. But yeah, only invest what you're comfortable losing. That would be my message as well. Now, if you're a little bit more risky, you may want to take. Most people, what they're comfortable losing is 10 to 20% of their savings, right? If you're a little more risky, maybe you want to do 30%, 40%. It all just depends on your risk profile and how risky you want to be and how much conviction you have, And before you do anything, do your research. Go on YouTube, go on Twitter, read books on Bitcoin. The best one is The Bitcoin Standard. Another good one is The Internet of Value. That's a great one. Watch a ton of videos. Do your homework before you invest.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the reason I asked that is I don't know if you notice it right now, but on LinkedIn, I call it catfishing in LinkedIn. There are these profiles who will message you and you'll see the pictures of like Instagram models, but they all say the same generic thing, asking you to invest in Bitcoin mining, where if you give, let's say, $1,000, they're promising you 4,000 in return. For those listening right now, is Bitcoin mining still a lucrative thing? Because I know in the past it was, but I would assume right now that the landscape has changed.
There's a lot of companies that with a lot of money, and they really know what they're doing, and they have a lot more computing power than you would as like an individual person or a small group. So I don't personally believe that mining is the way to go right now. It might have been right in the beginning, but not anymore.
Yeah, man. And like if Instagram models are messaging you for mining investment, I think you should. That's a red
No,
flag in itself.
that's a red flag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, as we are winding down, man, there's this new thing which is NFTs. I'd love to know your thoughts about it. And second, I see that its prices is in Ethereum. Like, does that mean you have to pay it? You can't buy an NFT in divided portions like Bitcoin. Do you have to buy it in full price?
Yeah, an NFT, what that's called, it stands for non-fungible token. Typically, a non-fungible token is created for a one of a kind or a couple pieces of digital art is like what NFTs are really being used for right now, because it's like you create this piece of artwork and then you create a token that says the token, like it's almost like a in art, there's something called a certificate of authenticity, where basically somebody says, here's your certificate showing that this is an authentic Picasso painting or a authentic painting by that actual artist. That's like what the NFT is. The NFT is like the certificate of authenticity, but it's like a digital version of that, showing that, hey, I own this NFT, which means I own that piece of artwork, basically. That's the same thing with the certificate of authenticity on physical, pieces of art in the real world. So yeah, you cannot break up an NFT. An NFT is typically, there might be 10 NFT tokens if an artist or someone puts something out there that's, hey, I want to do 10 of these, almost like prints, almost like art prints in the real world. And then I'll have 10 NFT tokens, and then people can bid, and it's just a live bidding process to then buy that NFT to say, hey, I own this piece of artwork, or I own this piece of property that is valuable, and I have one of one, or one of 10, or one of 20, or like whatever, however many NFTs they make for that particular piece of property. So yeah, I think it's a really interesting technology. I think that what will happen is you'll start to see pieces of physical art in the real world have NFTs associated with them, a digital certificate of authenticity. So it's going to be really interesting to see kind of like how that technology develops. I don't think it's going to be like obviously as big as like Bitcoin, but I think it'll definitely have a use case in the world. Who knows? There might even be NFTs eventually for like a piece of real estate, or any type of valuable property that you want to show. Hey, this is one of a kind. I own the rights to this.
Yeah, man, and I think they already started with sneakers, and if you're not aware, like sneakers are a big thing, and sometimes, especially, I'm sure in Asia, they could fake a sneaker so good, unlike before, and having
Yep.
NFT is really a great way to say that your investment is safe and legit. Because like, if I'm gonna buy a shoe and someone says it's original, it's worth $1,000, like, how will I know? Especially if it's number one used, they don't have like the receipt, or even receipts, man. I think they could easily like
You can fake
falsify
those.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can fake
Yeah.
those. I
Absolutely,
mean,
man. No, that's an awesome use case, because you're right. And I have a friend who's really into sneakers, and sneakers are pieces of art to people. They really they really cherish those. And you're totally right. You could fake a receipt. How do you know that this is the real shoe? Well, how you know is you have an NFT that's tracked on a blockchain that basically says, it shows you everything that happened from when the NFT was created, that certificate of occupancy, which was created with the product, that shoe. And then you see, hey, it was sold to you, Paulo, and you're like, hey, I have the NFT. Here's the shoe. Great. So I completely agree. That's a really cool use case. I didn't know they were doing that, but
yeah, I think it was just like 3 days ago, if I'm not mistaken. But it's really a smart thing, especially since there are a lot of collectibles like trading cards. Who's getting and having an NFT could really help. Now, you've been very generous with your time, Spencer. But before I let you go, to everyone listening, where can they find you? Anything that you want to promote? Are you coming up with a book or something? Man, I'd love to hear it.
you can find me. My most active platform I'm on is LinkedIn. Just my name, Spencer Freidenrich. You can check me out there. I'm also on Twitter. Twitter is great to follow me. I kind of use Twitter as my personal crypto diary, where I retweet things that I see out in the crypto universe. So if you're just kind of interested to get started, I probably send out 1 or 2 tweets a day. Just again, kind of just reminding myself what's happening, because things are happening so fast. So those are going to be the best 2 things. The other thing, if you want to find me on Instagram, it's just my name, Spencer, and then first couple of digits, Freid. That's my handle on Instagram. And yeah, not coming out with any books or anything yet at this point. Just working on building my insurance business. So if you have any needs or questions there, and working on building the college business, if you have any questions or needs there, just please feel free to reach out. You can find me, or you can find our college business at FMC College Funding Solutions.com. That's our website, and you can check out kind of what we can do for people and see if we can help.
Yeah, man, and for those listening, Spencer is starting to gain some notoriety on LinkedIn, and that's the reason why I got to see his account and reach out to him. He's been very kind. So thank you so much, Spencer, for joining us on this episode. To everyone listening, I think we learned a lot today. The most important thing is to be educated with what you are investing and to be prepared, to be insured. And definitely all the links are going to be provided in this episode in whatever platform we post this. And for everyone else, don't forget to follow us on all our social media handles. We'll see you again soon. And again, I'm Paulo Gonzales and IDK What To Say. Whoa, that's the end of the video. So cool you finished it. Don't forget to subscribe to all our social media channels, the YouTube channel, of course. Leave a comment, a thumbs up. Like, that helps us a lot. So, I mean, tell us, I want to hear what you think about what you just heard.